Rhode Island and Illinois were in a race to the bottom in funding pensions. Illinois had the largest unfunded liability by percentage, and Rhode Island had the highest per capita. But while recent pension reform has been blocked in the Illinois General Assembly, Rhode Island passed reform last year that changed benefits for current workers and retirees, not just new hires. That cut its unfunded liability in about half. Now Cook County may be looking to that plan for lessons to reform its own pension system. Here to talk about that are Gina Raimondo, treasurer of the state of Rhode Island and architect of the state's pension reform. She'll address the Union League Club tomorrow on pensions. And Bridget Gaynor, Cook County Commissioner from the 10th District, which includes the North Lakefront and part of the Northwest Side. She also chairs the county's pension oversight panel. And welcome both to Chicago tonight. Good to have you here.
Thank you.
First of all, Treasurer, if I can begin with you, how bad was Rhode Island's pension situation when you took office?
It was very bad. It was an unhealthy system, and the retirement security of our public employees was really at risk. To put some definition around that, it was about 48% funded. We had, as you said, the highest unfunded liability per capita of any state in the country. Under a certain set of assumptions, the actuary told us we could be out of money in the pension fund in 20 to 25 years. And very importantly, the bill coming out of our budget into the pension was just skyrocketing. So at the time I took office, about 10% of our state tax revenue went into the pension. Absent reform, within 1 year, it would have been about 20%, and then on its way to 30+%. So the crowding out was very real.
You were actually looking at a situation in which at least one community was about to declare bankruptcy. That kind of provided a flashpoint for you. Was that flashpoint helpful in getting the reforms that you wanted?
Well, you never want to say bankruptcy is helpful. I mean, it was very painful. It was a city called Central Falls. It went into bankruptcy. When it went into bankruptcy, they actually had to cut the pensions of retirees in half. So imagine going to an 80-year-old retiree and saying instead of living on $25,000 a year, you have to live on $12,000. So it really helped people to be honest. I think it kept us all committed to a process which was marked by facts and not trying to underestimate the problem that we had.
So give us some bullet points on what the pension reform looked like in Rhode Island.
So we increased the retirement age to Social Security retirement age, but with a glide path, so it was gentle for people that had the longest service. We suspended the cost of living increases on existing retirees. Prior to the reform, every retiree received a 3% raise every year. We said that has to stop until the system is healthy. And we also put everybody into a hybrid program on a go-forward basis, which was a limited defined benefit and a defined contribution on top of it. And
so it was a mixture of a traditional defined benefits pension program and what amounts to a 401k type of arrangement.
That's right, with one key exception where it's not a 401k because it's not voluntary. So our entire pension reform was guided by the principle of we want to provide retirement security. This isn't cutting benefits, this is providing a secure retirement. So we said everybody, if they work a career for the state, they have to save 5% of their pay in this defined contribution, and also they're going to get their defined benefit, so I feel very good. Now I can honestly tell public employees, your pension's secure, your retirement's secure.
And Bridget Gaynor, to what extent are other municipalities, counties, units of government looking at the Rhode Island experience?
I think there's two things to look at when you look at Rhode Island. The first is the way that they went about it, and I think there's a lot of lessons to be learned from that. So often, any pension changes in Illinois or other places around the country have been done without a lot of public input or without a lot of input from labor or from the workforce. One of the things that we're really looking at in the example of Treasurer Raimondo is town hall meetings, going out to talk with rank and file, really engaging labor in the process, talking to taxpayer groups, to civic groups, so people understand, first of all, this is the situation that we're in. At the county, we're 57% funded, and that has dropped precipitously over the last 10 years. This is how much we have, this is the unfunded liability, this is the amount of revenues that we have. If we were to just fund based on what the actuaries tell us to do without any changes to benefits, we'd have to take almost 100% of the property tax to do that instead instead of the 20% that goes in there now. So you can see that to the point of you either raise taxes, you crowd out other services that are really necessary for us, public safety and public health, or you look at coming up with a compromise. But you can't get there unless everybody understands where we are. And the workers need to understand that it's fair. They need to know what the options are because it's their retirement. And to do it without their input means that you're not going to come up with a plan that's sustainable.
Well, let's look at some of the bullet points that your working group has already come up with.
Right.
And they include a 1% increase in employee contributions, lower cost of living adjustments. You would increase the retirement age 5 years and lower vesting time to 5 years. These are some of the possible solutions. To what extent do you think these are viable?
I think that the things you have to consider are any solution has to include a change in the COLA. Right now, all employees in Illinois, outside of those in the IMRF, which is the Illinois Municipal Retirement Fund, receive a 3% compounding COLA. So the city, the state, and the county, their workers receive a 3% compounding COLA, which really accelerates the cost of the plan. Your pension doubles in about 26 years. Any change is going to have to include a change to the COLA. And probably also a change to retirement age. Right now, retirement ages for public sector are lower than the average. We need to get closer to that kind of standard, normal national retirement age, which is, 65, 66, 67. Maybe you don't work that entire time, but maybe you take a reduced benefit up until 67. So we know those two elements have to be included. But President Preckwinkle, myself, the board, we're all looking at, there's multiple ways to look at COLA. Maybe you only have a compounding COLA on the first $30,000 of your benefit and then the rest doesn't get covered by COLA. Retirement age, maybe you do have a glide path up to a higher retirement age. There's a bunch of different ways to look at these options. We know that retirement age and COLA have to be addressed, and then healthcare is another huge issue for retirees that needs to be addressed.
In the Rhode Island model, the thinking was that in so many states, or units of government, the initial impulse is to just make it prospective for new employees. You decided that that would not be fair to younger workers. But pushback in terms of affecting the benefits of current employees and also existing retirees, what was that like?
Mm-hmm. There was pushback,
And there still is. I mean, aren't you being sued?
Exactly. There was pushback and there still is pushback. This is in the courts now. But what you have to remember, a couple things. One is that we committed ourselves to have a system which was, a reform which was fair. And by fair, we meant no one group would bear all the burden. And so with everybody giving a little, retirees give a little, active workers give a little, new employees, give a little, it allowed us to make sure everyone gets a secure retirement, everyone's pension will be there, and no one bears a disproportionate portion of the load. The other thing that's important, I said very often this is math, not politics. Unfortunately, the math of this is such that your unfunded liability doesn't go down by even a penny if all you do is impact the new employees. So you have to realize that if your problem is an unfunded liability, and as Bridget says, it crowds out all other public services, the reality is you have to do something to active retirees and active employees.
And yet, what was your response to the argument that current employees and retirees, must have made in Rhode Island, and that is we did everything we were supposed to do. We made our contribution, and why should we accept less or have to, in essence, pay for somebody else's shortcomings, either by way of inadequate contributions over the years or mismanagement or the ups and downs of the economy?
First of all, in the case of Rhode Island, the state has made every payment required. We have a state law requiring the state to pay in, and it never missed a payment, and that is important. What I would say to them is, you're right, you have done nothing wrong. It's not your fault, you've done nothing wrong. However, we have a system that's broken, and if we don't fix it now, you'll have no pension. And furthermore, your town might go bankrupt. And furthermore, there won't be enough money to fund schools and buses and roads. So what we said over and over was, there's issues of fairness all around this, and the most important thing is that we fix it now. Don't just run into a brick wall and let it run out of money and people have nothing.
Bridget Gaynor in Rhode Island, as the treasurer just alluded to earlier, there was a crisis point where towns were facing bankruptcy and so forth. If there isn't a discernible crisis point that's in the immediate future, does that lessen the ability of you to get something done?
I think it makes it harder when the crisis point's in the future. I mean, we've estimated that the county fund goes bankrupt in 26 years if we do nothing. Various city funds have an earlier bankruptcy date, same thing with the state. But I think that the issue is so on the top of people's minds now, and I think that it's something that has been kind of the drumbeat, whether it's in the press, whether it's labor, whether it's others, that this is an issue we have to solve. And the other thing that we won't really have a lot of choice about is the rating agencies and the bondholders. We've already seen that it's become more expensive for the state to borrow money, to do basic things, roads, bridges, anything with infrastructure. Same thing with the city and the county. While we have a great rating, these issues of unfunded pension liability will start to hit us in the pocketbook. So if you want to do anything else and all of those things that not only lead economic development but allow us to just even function, you're not going to be able to do that, or it's going to be much more expensive unless you solve the pension issue.
And in Rhode Island, would you say that these steps have basically solved the pension issue?
Yes, I would say they have solved the pension issue. It's made the system healthy. It won't run out of money. It's affordable. It's fiscally responsible. We've averted certain bankruptcies. People have retirement security. And to the bond point, earlier this year, Rhode Island went out and floated its general obligation bond, and it was extremely successful. We were 3 times oversubscribed. We had over $200 million of interest for $80 million of bonds at a very low cost to the taxpayer. And the rating agencies all lauded the pension reform effort. And that money from that bond offering is going to be used for affordable housing, higher education, school buildings. So, in fact, I would argue the crisis is today, which is to say every day you don't fix this is a day you're choosing not to invest in public schools, public roads, public buses, public workforce today. So.
My understanding is that you've gotten a lot of phone calls regarding the steps you've taken, and that you've been in touch with Mayor Emanuel. Has he contacted you?
Yes, we've had discussions, and he, I think, is doing a very noble and challenging job of trying to right the ship here in Chicago. And we've spent a lot of time with him and his staff.
Bridget Gaynor, what are the lessons from Rhode Island that you would, that you might hope to take on and learn from in Cook County?
I think the main lesson is be honest with people. Treat them as adults, be upfront. Don't try and hide the ball even if the news is bad. And really go out and beat the bushes and try and talk to everyone about the issue and offer people what the options are and allow them to give feedback. Because if we do that, there's going to be a change to the pension in Illinois. There's going to be a change to the pension in the county. I want to make sure that nobody, not one worker at the end of this process says, I didn't know what was happening or I didn't have a chance to say my piece. And so that's the lesson we'll take. There's going to be change. It's how we manifest that change and how we do it in a way that's fair for the taxpayers as well as for the workforce that'll make the difference.
Gina Raimondo, Bridget Gaynor, thank you both for being here. We appreciate it.